Brothers and sisters, good afternoon. In Africa, we know that to listen by sitting down is a sign of respect. Those who speak in a palaver or in an assembly, the one who speaks stands up. And I think it is a practical, cultural tradition, because if you speak by standing up, you don't speak too long. But if you speak sitting down, the sermon risks to be very long. Another thing is that also in African tradition, I imagine that I was in a village, that you are the villagers, that I have been invited to say the Mass for the first time in that village. I cannot start preaching without saying who I am. Because this is the first question that the people want to know. I do not know all of you, but nobody of you knows me. My name is, Christian name, Rodrigo. I was born in Colombia, South America, to add the variety today. And I say that I was because it is long ago. And I am a Jesuit, a bishop Jesuit. That is not something very normal. And it happens to be me, which is a sign that the Pope is not always infallible. I came to the African continent for my initiation in the year of the Lord 1964. I think I have been completing my initiation. I came, I was not a priest, I was a student. I was 25 years old, full of dreams, full of expectations, full of joy, because I came sent by the obedience, a bit manipulated by me. I asked for it, and finally, such was the insistence that the superior blessed the mission. I arrived in Congo that at that time was Congo Leopoldville. Today is Congo Kinshasa. And to do my regency, I came after my philosophy. I was scholastic. Then, at the moment of starting theology, I could not do theology here in Africa, and that is good for you to be aware, because there was not a faculty of theology for priests and for Jesuits and for religious in African continent. I asked to do the theology in a major seminary with the diocesan priest, but that was not blessed by the obedience. So I was sent back to my country for theology, for ordination, and I came back. Immediately after my ordination, I was back to Congo again. I started doing the missionary, itinerant missionary that they called, visiting the villages, catechizing, teaching the children, preparing for First Communion, etc. That implies that I had to learn, beside my language, my native language, that is Spanish, I had to learn French for my regency in a secondary school to teach. And I had to learn the language of the villages in the province of Congo, Zaire, the Kikongo. The Kikongo, non Kikongo Chaletà, but Quintando. Vrai Kikongo, comme diraient les Zaïrois. I worked there for 20 years. From 64 that I arrived, except my theology, of course, until the 1984. In 84, this time the Obedience took the initiative and was sent here to Kenya. Why? Because Father Arrupe had the great idea to start theological faculties in Africa. First in English, in Nairobi, secondly in French, in West Africa, in Abidjan. That implied to move from French to English and from Kikongo to Kiswahili. It's very quick said, but you must do that. Then I was sent because of Hekima College, because of you, because of this institution, to start Hekima College with a group of other pioneers. And by the way, I am the only survivor. And I am very proud that after so many years, I am talking about 84, I have been in touch with Hekima University College periodically. Even when I was in Ethiopia, I was invited to come from there to ordain deacons. And I have been very grateful and very proud to be declared recently honorary professor of Hekima College. So, welcome. This is my home. I was also one that started the parish that is well known in Kangemi, St. Joseph the Worker in Kangemi, in 1985. The 1st of May, Feast of St. Joseph the Worker, Father Peter Hans Kolbenbach said the first Mass with Father Joseph Payer from Canada, Jesuit, and myself in Kangemi. There was nothing existing there. We did not have even a house. And if you go today and see Kangemi, the development is incredible. In 98, I was provincial, but I omitted the negative things. From 95 to 98. And in 98, my successor, provincial, sent me in mission to Ethiopia because he said the language of Ethiopia is complicated, not everybody is ready, you have learned languages, and maybe you can learn Amharic. And I said, Amen. So I had to spend 1 year in the school learning Amharic because at that time I was already 60-year-old. So in my culture we have a proverb that says, an old parrot does not learn new words. Then I stayed here in Ethiopia 16 years, the last 7 years as a bishop, as I told you. And when I reached the age of 75, it was a bit late, but I started admiring and appreciating the canon law because I could retire. And when I retired and my successor was dead, they asked me, the priest, Bishop, are you going to remain here, or are you going home? And I told them, no, I don't remain here. So you are going home? Yes. To Colombia? No, to Kenya. Kenya is my home. I say that in all truth, because I am the last born of 11 children, 3 of us Jesuits, a real virus. And all of them, all have died. All are my ancestors. When I was listening to the ancestor, I imagine all my family listening and seeing us here. I don't have literally anyone. I have nephews and grandnephews, but nothing else. But I can say, like Jesus, looking around, who is my mother, who is my brother, who is my mother, my sister? You are the one, because you do the will of God with me. So that is what I am, and I am invited to you in this Culture Day, which is exactly one of my main pastoral concerns. What I was teaching in Cuea, I forgot to tell that, but and in Hekima at the same time, with Father McGarry, the two of us were collaborating with Chiea, that was at the beginning, not Cuea, was Catholic Higher Institute of Eastern Africa, Chiea. I was teaching there pastoral theology, and in Hekima also pastoral theology. Has always been my great preference among the branches of theology. Pastoral theology that today is better known perhaps as practical theology. And in practical theology, the topic, the area of the relation between gospel and cultures is perhaps the main issue in that theology. And that is why I accepted very gladly, and I recalled today this sentence of Paul VI in his apostolic exhortation, The Evangelization in the Modern World. He said, the great drama of our times is the divorce between culture and the gospel. And later on, really in the Evangelii Gaudium, the joy of the gospel of Pope Francis, he said another statement that is programmatic for him. It is imperative to evangelize the culture in order to inculturate the gospel. I think that statement is complete and says all the two aspects and the bilateral dynamism of inculturation that is not simply superficial cosmetic adaptation. It's deeper than that. There is a happy coincidence. Today we are celebrating this variety of cultures in the unity of faith here. Yesterday, if you pay attention and you have YouTube and get the Vatican News of yesterday, the Pope was in a similar setup as here, giving a speech to the members of the International Theological Commission. And he was telling exactly what the gospel today was telling us, the way to approach cultural traditions, the way we approach, we evangelize the culture and the traditions. Culture is dynamic, culture grows, culture changes. Every new generation is an innovation in culture. And that is why we cannot conceive inculturation like a driver that would drive the car always looking back to the mirror. The accident is assured. And that is why I invite all of you to reflect deeply in the challenge of inculturation. Cardinal Joseph Malula, when I was in Congo, a great man, I can give witness to that. I participated in the formation of Bakambi, or lay responsible of parishes in Kinshasa. He said a sentence in the African Synod in 1994. I was also there as a theologian of AMESEA. He said, foreign missionaries have Christianized Africa. Now it's up to us Africans to Africanize the Christianity. They Christianized Africa, we have now to Africanize Christianity, which indicates, again, the double movement of inculturation. But it cannot be taken as two separate, two phases, or two activities that are not connected. Two historical stages, no. They succeed, they take place at the same time. Inculturation has to be prophetic. Jesus today in the gospel gave us a great example of trying to evangelize the tradition of what is pure and impure, what can be washed and cannot be washed in the culture, and give the great value to external things instead of internal impurity. The culture needs to be evangelized. All the cultures of the world need conversion. And when inculturation came into the fore, it was after the Synod of 1974, the first Synod on evangelization, called by Paul VI. For us Jesuits, it's a great sign and a great challenge to know that the word inculturation was pronounced in public for the first time in an ecclesiastical meeting in that synod by nobody else than Pedro Arrupe, our general at that time, invited to the synod. He was the one who mentioned the word inculturation that did not exist in the English dictionaries. And so later on, in 1977, after the other synod on catechesis, for the first time, the word inculturation appeared officially in the document of the Catholic Church in the message of that synod. So we are inheriting a challenge that is not so old. in the church, in fact. But it's a real one. And that is what Pope Francis was telling the theologians. You have to do theology today according to the new signs of the times. One of the signs of the times in the church today that nobody can deny is that we are a church in the world in a stage looking for synodality. And Pope Francis told the theologians, do theology in a synodal way. That is, if we apply the Ubuntu that was called at the beginning, I am because we are, I do theology because we do together. The theologian cannot be an isolated, strange being in the middle of the community. It has to be listening to the people of God. All of us are invited to this kind of inculturation. Therefore, let us pray the Lord. I think this is the first Culture Day that we celebrate. We know that in liturgy, there has been a lot of progress in Africa, and I can say it's true, I mentioned Congo, Kenya, Ethiopia, but preaching retreats and giving seminars on justice and peace and pastoral, I have been graced by the opportunity to work in 17 African countries, including Madagascar, of course. Whereas I stood for a full month. They invited me, it was 40 years ago, they invited me again to celebrate the 40 years of the province, but because of the COVID, I could not attend the celebration because the virus was inculturated. Therefore, let us be aware that there are elements in the cultures that cannot be inculturated in the gospel. That there are elements that need evangelization before being inculturated in the world, not only in Africa. People think that inculturation is for Africa, for mission territories, are what they called. We are mission territories. I can tell you, I announce officially that Europe is the new mission territory today. And that many Africans are evangelizing there. That is a reality. All the cultures need continuous evangelization. Why? Because we live in a culture of ambition, economic ambition. Economy is becoming the most important value of the human being, giving meaning to human dignity and life. That cannot be. The culture we live today is a culture of violence, a culture that lives out of weapons market, out of wars provoked to create the market of weapons. We cannot accept, the gospel cannot be inculturated in a culture of violence. The gospel cannot be inculturated in a culture of corruption. The gospel cannot be inculturated in a culture of racial discrimination, gender discrimination, or tribal discrimination. This is the challenge. And that is why we have not to be only satisfied with the achievements we have done at liturgical level, but be aware that by accepting the challenge of inculturation, we need the challenge of evangelization. Thank you very much.